Good day, this is Dr. Mark Holacek, philosopher, historian, and Thomas Jefferson scholar. Today, just a brief short on the situation at Monticello with the Thomas Jefferson Foundation. As you know by now, on June 18th, the foundation has declared ex cathedra that Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings had a relationship, and there were 6 children by Jefferson in that relationship. Now, I've been outraged by that simply because in 2000, that's a radical shift from the position of 2000, in which they argued that it's probable that Jefferson was the father of Eston Hemings, highly probable, improbable that he was the father of the other 5 children. As I said before, that too can be called into question. That seems to be hyperbolic given the amount of evidence that is at our disposal. If you look at Jefferson's, for example, testimonies of children and grandchildren of his daughter and his grandchildren speak of someone, it seems to me, that whose character would not allow for such a relationship. Anyways, the foundation has for 20 years, perhaps more, been remarkably silent about discussing anything other than the possibility of Jefferson being the father of Sally Hemings' children. And that, as I've said before, is a rather dangerous situation. We need to do something about that. Why is that? Well, let me read a passage here from John Stuart Mill's On Liberty. This is the closest thing to a liberal's Bible. He says, writes Mill, "The peculiar evil of silencing the expression of an opinion is that it is robbing the human race, posterity as well as the existing generation, those who dissent from the opinion still more than those who hold it. If the opinion is right, they are deprived of the opportunity of exchanging error for truth. If wrong, they lose what is almost as great a benefit, the clearer perception and livelier impression of truth produced by its collision with error." Now, that is something that Jefferson, too, wrote on this issue, and I think it's query 17 of his notes on Virginia when he's talking about freedom of religion, that it's important we don't want a Procrustean bed for opinion in the same way we don't want a Procrustean bed for human physicality. We don't want everybody being the same height and looking the same and so forth. And Jefferson's point is that God made us in such a way that we debate religious opinions, and even between the most intelligent people, there are radical divergences of opinion on religious issues. So there must have been some reason for that, thought Jefferson. Now, Mill's argument, which Jefferson, wrote about, almost 100 years earlier, is powerful. One is that diversity of opinion is important. Even if it turns out to be the case that Jefferson was the father of Eston Hemings and the other Hemings children, it's important not to silence opinion on the other side, if only because with that collision with error, it will become clearer, the truth actually become clearer. And on the other hand, it just might be, as I think is the case, that what the Thomas Jefferson Foundation is asserting, that Jefferson was the father of Eston and the other children, is false. I do think it's false. So I think what Mill is showing, in all cases, the community loses. Now, Jefferson, like Gandhi, many, many years after him, thought that there was something in the inherent power of truth that made it such that, and because of human rationality, that truth would have to win out in the long haul. Mill is skeptical. He does believe that there's something to truth. Truth has something that untruth does not have, but he does at least caution us to say that the champions of untruth often campaign for untruth as vigorously as the champions for truth. And so false opinion can remain the received view for a long, long time when the campaign is vigorously defended. Now, we need to push at least what I've been arguing for, and I still argue for. We need to push for open discussion on this issue. So one way to push for that is not to go to Monticello, is to refuse to visit Monticello and hit them in the pocketbook. I know that's probably a small punch because they've received something like, what, $100 million in grants this year already. And that might be a better way to go to try to talk to the people giving them money. But the point is that they're not allowing free discussion on this issue, and that's something that we ought not to tolerate. A second thing is that if you do wind up going to Monticello, demand that they discuss the possibility of Jefferson not being the father. Ask them why there's no open discussion on that. And oftentimes what you get when you ask those questions, you get a very, very sour look by the person ushering you around Monticello. So we need to do those things. Let's demand open discussion. As I said before, I would love personally to come down to Monticello and debate Annette Gordon Reed, who was the world's foremost historian, apropos of the proposed relationship between Jefferson and Sally Hemings, a relationship I think that never happened. So let's, push for debate. Let's push for open discussion on this issue, and not be sitting around and just playing around on Facebook and other, contact these people. Contact Professor Gordon Reed. I have the phone number on the Facebook page. Contact the people at Monticello and ask them and write and say that we want open discussion on this issue. Thank you.